The Alpha Bravo War. The evening sun dipped below the horizon of the California desert, casting long, amber shadows across the sprawling military testing range. This was the proving ground where technological futures were forged and where the intense rivalry between two elite engineering teams had reached a boiling point. The air was thick with tension, dust, and the unmistakable hum of high-powered electronic equipment. It was a Quinn Martin production, a narrative filled with human ambition, dedication, and the relentless pursuit of excellence, starring Buddy Ebsen as the sharp-witted veteran investigator Barnaby Jones, and co-starring Lee Merriweather, with guest appearances by Michael Tolan, Rosemary Forsyth, Jack Jing, and Augusta Summerland. Tonight, the unfolding drama was known to everyone involved as the Alpha Bravo War, a conflict not of infantry and artillery, but of circuits, microchips, and corporate pride. On the observation deck overlooking the primary launch pad, Bill Whalen adjusted his binoculars, his brow furrowed with deep concern. The countdown was approaching, and every second felt like an eternity. He turned toward his lead technician, his voice tight with urgency. "The gun is going to be less than impressed with our setting up time," he warned, gesturing toward the heavy experimental missile resting on the pad. "What is the holdup, Green?" Tom Green, a brilliant but visibly exhausted engineer from the Alpha team, did not look up from his diagnostic console. He wiped a bead of sweat from his forehead and kept his fingers flying across the switches. "As soon as they get their observation van in position," Green replied, his voice strained. "Let us get that Bravo team observer downrange now. Come Friday, that Army brass is going to have a stopwatch on us, and we cannot afford a single mistake." Wayne Hauser, another senior member of the technical staff, stepped forward to intervene before the brewing argument could disrupt the schedule. "I will handle it, Bill," Hauser said reassuringly, placing a hand on the console. "Double-check the input after you get her focused." "Right," Green muttered, nodding as he re-engaged with the calibration sequence. Within minutes, the communication headset crackled to life, signaling that the pieces were finally moving into place. "Bravo observer in position," the technician reported through the static. "Hal is here. Alpha observer in position." The countdown supervisor took his place at the central podium, his hand hovering over the master ignition switch. "Alpha, ready to fire," he announced to the control room. 3, 2, 1. A brilliant flash of light illuminated the desert as the experimental rocket ignited, soaring into the sky with a deafening roar. The telemetry data flooded the monitor screens in real time, drawing sharp gasps from the gathered engineers. "That is less than 2 microseconds off," Whalen observed, studying the digital readout with a mixture of relief and professional scrutiny. Hauser leaned in closer, pointing at a specific spike in the wave formation. "That new R14 circuit will narrow that even further if we can prove it out in time," he said, his eyes bright with optimism. "Either way, General Ormsby has no complaints about our current progress." Whalen sighed, running a hand through his hair. He was a perfectionist, and, to him, even a microscopic flaw was unacceptable. "Well, 2 microseconds might be acceptable to Ormsby, but not to me," Whalen said firmly. "I want that new circuit ready for the trials." "He is delighted," Hauser countered, trying to ease the pressure in the room. "Alpha team has been doing its homework, Bill. I still think we should take Ormsby up on his offer to extend the trial time, so we can iron out all the remaining bugs." Whalen shook his head, his determination hardening into stubbornness. "No extension is needed," he declared flatly. "I said we would be ready the 19th, and we will be. Turn your attention back to the monitors. Bravo ready to fire. 4, 3, 2, 1. Before the countdown could even conclude, a sudden, violent anomaly flashed across the main diagnostic board. A massive surge of power ripped through the telemetry lines, followed by a distant, hollow boom that shook the very foundations of the observation bunker. The Bravo team observation van downrange was suddenly enveloped in a brilliant, terrifying sheet of flame. "Oh, my God," a technician whispered in horror, dropping his clipboard to the floor. The aftermath of the tragic accident left the entire facility in a state of shock and mourning. Ted Marshall, the brilliant leader of the Bravo team, had lost his life in the unexplained explosion. In the wake of the disaster, the corporate board of directors decided that an internal security review was not enough. They needed someone completely detached from the intense corporate rivalry to uncover the truth. Enter Barnaby Jones, a seasoned investigator whose gentle demeanor and slow, deliberate manner of speaking often masked a razor-sharp intellect and an unmatched ability to read human behavior. The next morning, Barnaby stood inside the main engineering laboratory, observing the remaining technicians as they worked in sullen silence. He held a small, charred component in his hand, turning it over thoughtfully. Bill Whalen walked up to him, his face pale and lined with fatigue. "Put her through a heat and flow test if you are worried about shrinkage," Whalen muttered to a nearby assistant before turning his full attention to the investigator. "I will x-ray it first. It looks almost alive the way that I blinks on and off." Barnaby smiled faintly, looking at a miniaturized camera lens mounted on a guidance chassis. "That is the way we feel about it here," Whalen continued, his voice tinged with bitterness. "Almost alive. See, it sees here and then goes into confidence with its brains here. And that about sums it up." Reed Calder, the ambitious and hard-driving plant manager who oversaw both teams, stepped into the laboratory, accompanied by an older gentleman. "Bill Whalen, Mr. Jones," Calder announced, introducing them. "Mr. Calder mentioned the company was bringing you in to do an independent investigation. Bill Whalen, you have just been placed in charge of what they call the Bravo team since Ted Marshall was killed. I know you were his assistant, Bill, but the project must move forward." Barnaby nodded politely, his eyes scanning the laboratory. "You and your men come to any conclusion as to what caused the accident?" he asked in his characteristically mild tone. "Accident?" Whalen repeated, scoffing openly at the word. "Accident is the way your security people phrase it in their report." Barnaby remained unbothered by the engineer's sharp tone. "If you have been wanting to say it, go ahead," Barnaby invited gently. "You think my team tampered with your gear? Take it to Calder." Whalen turned angrily toward Hauser, who was working at a nearby drafting table. "You explained to me a 25-degree error in that circuitry of ours," Whalen demanded. "The day you put it on the board, I told you it was overly complicated." Hauser slammed his pencil down, stepping forward to defend himself. Hey, what the devil is going on here?" Hauser shouted. "I am tired of this clown-thinking Alpha team has got nothing more on its mind than to sink his project." Calder stepped between the two men, raising his hands to command silence. His voice was cold and authoritative. "Look, Bill, you are only afloat because I promised General Ormsby he would see both systems tested," Calder said, his eyes narrowing. "Now, let us channel all this energy where it belongs, at these tables. We will talk outside, Jones." Barnaby followed Calder out of the noisy lab and into the quiet, carpeted corridor that led to the executive offices. Calder stopped and turned to the investigator, his posture defensive. "Look, right from the start, I want you to know that I oppose any outsider snooping around this plant," Calder said bluntly. "I will try not to snoop, Mr. Calder," Barnaby replied with a reassuring smile. "Seems to be a little bitterness between your two engineering teams." "No, I would not describe it as bitterness, but a competitive spirit," Calder corrected quickly, trying to downplay the hostility. "Look, exactly what is your function, Mr. Jones? Both the police and our own security have already determined the accident to be simply that, an accident. Well, apparently the board of directors of your company feel that an independent investigation would sit better with the military and their own consciences," Barnaby explained calmly. Before Calder could respond, the sound of light footsteps echoed down the hallway. A beautiful, elegantly dressed woman walked toward them, carrying several shopping bags. It was Dory Calder, Reed's wife. She smiled warmly, though there was a subtle hint of loneliness in her eyes. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Hi." "Hello," Calder replied, his strict professional demeanor softening slightly at the sight of his wife. "You off to the big city for a little shopping?" "Not if I can coax you away for a leisurely lunch, for a change," Dory said, her tone a mixture of playfulness and gentle pleading. "You know, 1,000 details have popped up since that range accident." Calder sighed, checking his watch. "Oh, Mr. Jones, this is my wife, Dory," he said, remembering his manners. "How do you do?" Barnaby said, tipping his hat. "Hello," Dory replied politely. "Maybe I can get away early tonight," Calder suggested to his wife, patting her arm. "We will have some dinner out." Dory looked at him with a skeptical but affectionate smile. "I am afraid to ask."